Hello, hello. Welcome to Media Queen TV. We have a fantastic episode for you today on how to grow the healthiest produce on the planet. Now, we know the world has definitely gone crazy the last few years, and people are wondering where they're going to get their food from and how nutritious their food actually is. And we have two absolute experts on this topic today. We have Mark Pilgrim and Stefan Pilgrim from Key2 Group. Mark is the general manager and Stefan is the technical manager, and they have just created a breakthrough technology which will be the key to optimal health moving forward. Welcome, Mark and Stefan.
Hi, Aldwyn. Thanks for having us.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. And now, for those who don't know about Key2 Group, can you explain a little bit about your company and your products?
Well, the main product that we are about to discuss, we only have two, and it's virtually the same product, but for a different purpose. We developed technology a few years back that is really best described as fine grinding technology. So everything you throw into it, it turns into dust. And we designed it for particular purposes, but found when we started to use it that it did all sorts of things that we didn't expect. And one of those things was that it changed the molecular structure of certain materials, like the one we're using for our products now, where it releases all the contents of those materials or makes them give up their contents, and that happens immediately rather than, in some cases, waiting hundreds of years for those materials to release from their surrounds. And so it liberates the contents of certain materials, and in this case it liberates humic substances, which forms the basis of what our product is.
Yeah, fantastic. And this is really said to be an absolute lifesaver for farmers, this product that you have. And it releases soil contents, which include 60 separate mineral elements and more than 90 trace mineral elements, which for most people, they won't know what the hell that actually means. But basically, for most people, they're not really aware of the nutritional content in their food. But like I know when I have organic food, for example, you can taste the nutritious value in that. But even organic food, if the soil is not great, then it's still not optimal, is it? So how can people tell when they're having really great nutritious produce?
Well, you can taste it. I mean, your system is designed for that, and when you find it delicious, there's a reason for that. And I'm not talking about processed foods, just fresh fruit, fresh foods. We've all had different blueberries from different manufacturers, and they don't all taste the same. And the reason is that what the growing medium for it is different. So to give you an example of what we don't know, I can give you some figures from a recent analysis of staple foods in Canada, including potatoes, tomatoes, bananas, apples, onion, broccoli, and found that over the past 50 years, the potato has lost 100% of its vitamin A, 57% of its vitamin C, 56% of its iron, 28% of its calcium, 50% of its riboflavin, and 18% of its thiamine. All 7 of broccoli's nutrients declined, notably calcium, which fell 63%, and iron, which dropped 34%. Similar results were confirmed for the 25 fruits and vegetables that were analysed. Phil Warman, a professor of agricultural sciences at Nova Scotia Agricultural College, blames the profit motive for that, saying that the emphasis is on appearance, storability and transportability, and there's been much less emphasis on the nutritional value of fruit and vegetables. Crops are bred to produce high yields, to be resistant to disease, and produce more visually attractive fruits and vegetables, but no emphasis is placed on their vitamin or mineral content, which is their nutritional quality. Ting Lang, a professor at the Centre for Food Policy in London, agrees. He said you'd have to eat 8 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin A and vitamin C that your grandparents got from a single orange. So that'll give you an idea of what your food is yielding. And with organic food that you prefer, and many people prefer, even it is more expensive, but one of the issues with composting and things like that is that it gives a certain side of nutrition to your fruit and vegetables and the soil, but it lacks mineral content. And without all those minerals and the trace mineral elements that you mentioned, then you're not getting the full complement of what your body needs to sustain itself at optimum health.
It's absolutely mind-blowing when you think about it. And, to think that 90% of the food that people consume lacks the essential nutrition required for optimal health. And so what's actually happening, that now we have micronutrient deficiency across the world with more than 2 billion people worldwide. And all of this also is leading to poor physical and mental development in children, and diseases in adults and children like cognitive and skin disorders, malnutrition, viruses, and diabetes. And by what you do with this additive to the soil, with your technology, this can absolutely change the whole game for people now that you have this product. So it's really is mind-blowing when you look into it, and you think, you wonder why people want to eat and eat and eat, and they don't seem to be satisfied because they're just not getting the right nutrients.
Well, most chronic disorders today can be related to people's diets, and many people aren't aware. I know people who eat lots of fruit and vegetables, vegans, vegetarians, and they still have some chronic illnesses because what they're eating doesn't contain all the goodness that it should contain. And our product is not really an additive. In fact, it's what the entire planet grew from before mankind came along. And as nature doesn't care about time or how long things take, it doesn't matter if it nourishes the soil and plants over hundreds of years, whereas for humans, we need it to happen a little bit more quickly than that. And so what this is taking that material that the planet grew from in the first place and providing it and putting it back into the soil so that the soil contains all the nutrients that it did before mankind came along and depleted it.
So it's not an additive as such, although you do put it on the soil, but it actually releases the original soil contents, the 60 separate mineral elements, etc., and more than 90 trace mineral elements is released out of the soil from this product.
Well, it's all combined. Once it goes into the soil, it brings life back to the soil. So it fosters all the microbiological life in the soil, which is incredibly important. And all those small animals in the soil, they cultivate the soil and all the ingredients in there and put them in a form that is easily uptaken by plant roots, so that then all that goodness can get into the plants. So there's a transformation, if you like. So the soil, or the dirt, if you like, once we put this in the soil, if you like, it's more of a soil conditioner. It brings back that soil to peak condition. That's exactly what it's for, because it provides all the ingredients that the soil needs to be soil rather than dirt. But the depletion of soil on the planet has reduced its nutritional content to somewhere between 0 and not much. And there's a soil shortage on the planet. We're running out of good soil in which to grow our food. But it's occurred over decades of depleting the nutrient content of soil and not replacing those nutrients. You can imagine that if you keep going to the fridge and eat whatever's in the fridge and you don't replenish what's in the fridge, then you've obviously got an empty fridge in a relatively short period of time. Well, soil is no different. If you keep taking all the goodness out of the soil and don't replace it with anything, then it doesn't contain anything at all. It's empty, the same as your refrigerator. So, instead of replenishing it with nutrients, we've been poisoning the soil with pesticides and so-called fertilizers. We've been using chemicals to replace nature, and with devastating consequences. Nature needs time to reconstitute itself. However, our corporate farmers have no time. They want land that's producing. So instead of the age-old practice of alternating growing fields from season to season, that's been abandoned or shortened. And then, chemicals or artificial substitutes are dumped into the land. They can't even come close to what nature provides. They only assist in the erosion of the nutritional topsoil that provides most nutrition for crops. And accordingly, the result is that we're growing more and more food in soil which has less and less nutritional content, no ions, no minerals, nothing on which we can count on the soil to provide. Even worse, we're eating foods filled with chemicals that have been poured into soils in a desperate attempt to reconstitute it. While causing no apparent damage to our bodies in the short term, in the long term, these trace chemicals which remain in the body are not health producing. They cause lots of problems.
Half the thing is just getting conscious about this and actually knowing about this. A lot of people would have no idea. But I've definitely noticed when I get tomatoes from somewhere like Woolworths, they tend to just go off very quickly, and they're often gassed, and they taste nothing like if I buy something from a farmer, for example. And I believe you've had some great results with your product already with farmers. Can you share some of the results you've been getting with people that have been using this?
Well, I don't have physical numbers open here today, but look, without exception, everything that's grown with this product, the yield increases, the taste and the flavour is sensational. It pops in your mouth. People comment on that more than anything, is that the flavour is so rich and full. Strawberries and berries and things like that, have a flavour that they didn't even know that the berry tastes like in the first place, something like they've never tasted before. Most of the fruits grow to a larger size than normal as well. And things like all your nightshades and other varieties of vegetables just thrive on it. And when you eat them, you can tell the difference. Even potatoes, potatoes actually have flavour. They're not just like, mushy water. So there isn't anything, like nature invented this stuff, we didn't. So, and there's nothing that nature doesn't provide that's required, for your fruit and vegetables. But if it's only been grown in artificial fertilizers, then it's not going to taste the same. And there's all sorts of techniques, obviously, to keep the fruit and veggies stocked at your supermarket. They need to be refrigerated. And one of the reasons, one of the silly things I've found throughout my time is that, there are vegetables grown in Mackay in Queensland, and then they go to a distribution centre in Brisbane to be stored and refrigerated for weeks, and then they go into a truck, and then they go back to the Woolworths and Coles back at Mackay where the stuff came from 6 weeks later. So the fruit and vegetables are already at least 6 weeks old when it hits the shelves, and that's why when you take it home, it only lasts another few days, because unless you refrigerate it, because it's already outlived its lifespan. So you're always going to have a much better result. It doesn't really matter what you put that's natural and not artificial in the soil. It will all help, and growing things out of the soil, in an organic nature or in the backyard and things like that, will always taste better than you can buy them from the fruit shop. And that's because your backyard and your veggie patch hasn't been cropped over and over and over again for decades, so it still has most of those nutrients in it in the soil. There are some exceptions, of course, these days when they go in and put down new housing estates. There's not a lot of soil in your backyard. It's mostly all the leftovers from the building process.
That's true, and a lot of clay.
Yeah,
a lot of clay soil. I must say, I was blown away when I went to your factory in Melbourne, and I felt the actual product, and it was it was amazing. It was like this black, it's almost like black dust, it kind of feels like. And then Stefan did a really cool little experiment. Stefan, could you explain what that experiment was you did, where you mixed some products together there? And I'd love to hear if you could share that with people. And I believe you do have some videos up online about what you did as well.
Yep, well, it's essentially just showing both of our products and how they work as well as possible without having a full trial going on. So we put both of our products in some water to explain that one is hydrophilic, which means it mixes with water, and the other one is hydrophobic, which means it doesn't like water. And what you do is when you put the agricultural product into the water, mixes through. It's a very similar consistency to the other one, except that when you put the hydrophobic product in the water, it just wants to jump out. But that's really good for contamination and cleaning up all kinds of nasties that you don't want in the soil or in the water. So it's a very good visual representation of what we do, but obviously the video does it a lot better than how I'm explaining it. So you can always go to the website and check it out.
Yes, it's phenomenal. And for those who do want to check out the website, it's Key2 Group, Key the number 2, and Group, KEY number 2, and then Group, GROUP.com. It's up there in the comments there. So go check out the website, check out some of these products. They are really, it is mind-blowing. I know there's years of research that's gone into this and the technology, etc. And how long does it take for the results to show once people start using the product?
Well, like everything, there's no exact time frame, but in general, the first thing that the product does when it hits the soil is it goes into remediation effect. So it binds up toxins, it pulls in heavy metals, it does all sorts of things that condition the soil. So, and then at the same time, it creates the perfect environment for microbiological life to come in and thrive, and that makes a lot of difference. Now, because a lot of the cultivation and a lot of the changes made are due to the microbial life, it's the same as for humans. Microbes are more active in warmer climates, so that remediation process and that improvement in the soil takes around 30 days, probably a little bit less in summertime, and it'll take up to 3 months in wintertime if you're in a very cold environment. Not so long if you're up where you are in Queensland. You have much more even temperate climate. But once it's done its remediation work, anything that you plant into it then will get the full benefit. It doesn't mean you can't plant things as soon as you put it into the soil. It just means that it won't be as efficient as it will be, say, a month later. So if you can prepare your soil and put the product into it, and then allow that to rest there for a little while, after it's been watered, and then plant, sometime after that, like in the next 14 to 21 days, you're going to get a much better result, and things will happen much sooner than if you plant immediately after you've treated the soil.
Fantastic. And for farmers out there who want to trial the product, you do offer a free trial. Is that correct? You're still doing that?
Yes, we do. We'll offer up to 400 kilos of product for free. So to give you an idea, you only need around 250 kilos per hectare. So you can try it on a hectare and have a lot left over. The product also makes artificial fertilizers far more efficient and stops a lot of the contamination problems that are caused by artificial fertilizers, and stops the runoff into the water tables. So if in a case where people want to use it in conjunction with artificial fertilizers, then you can use as little as 75 kilos per hectare to 150. And what it does at the same time, you can reduce the amount of chemical fertilizers you're using at the same time. You reduce the quantity of our product that you use. So that means that you're reducing the overall costs at the same time.
Amazing. And how have you found it, Stefan, since you've been around the company? Obviously, Mark's your father, so obviously you're here supporting your dad through all this. But how do you find it generally as someone also working in the business?
I quite enjoy it because it's not a typical job that you would come across. So it's definitely not boring. It's always quite interesting and fascinating what's going on and what we can do and help, and all the beneficial things that you can wrap your head around and put some effort towards. So it's very rewarding in that way, especially when you can get good results in food and put nutritional content back in. because ideally we want to stop all the allergies that kids are facing, because all the food they eat these days, it's just got nothing inside it. So this is something that can definitely help towards that, and it also motivates you to keep doing what you're doing, do some good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good all around the world, right? This will work on any soil anywhere in the world. Is that correct?
Yep, of course. And the raw product that we use, it's the most prolific commodity on the planet, so it's not going to run out anytime soon.
Amazing. And of course, it's your special process that helps to extract all the goodies, right?
Yep, definitely.
Yes.
So did you want to know about the process? I want it all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd love you to share for those who don't know, because there is quite a lot of detail on your website, key2group.com. But yeah, if you could explain the process, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Well, the material is formed from peat deposits over many thousands of years, during which time compression and natural chemical reactions occur. During the geological sequence over time and under compression, moisture is squeezed out of the peat. Now they name each stage as that moisture reduces in the time sequence, and it's I guess they're named to distinguish the changing characteristics of the material. So what starts out life as peat is then called lenodite, then lignite, then it turns into brown coal, and then black coal. And if enough pressure is left on it, it turns into crude oil. And black coal will actually liquefy and turn into crude oil, which is where it comes from. And if heated sufficiently, it even turns into diamonds. So the Key2Ag, our product, is the product of subjecting lignite, which is aged peat, to a mechanical process that liberates the entire humic contents so that they yield all of their precious life-giving nutrients immediately when they're added to soil. It's the first completely natural product that performs equal to or better than artificial fertilizers in terms of yield, performance and price. However, it produces crops with far higher nutritional content than is possible with artificial fertilizers. It also remediates, as we talked before, contaminated land. It replenishes soil fertility, stimulates biological activity, and it's also a natural wetting agent or water sponge, which people don't really understand. So when it rains or when the soil is watered with this product into it, it actually will not release that water to the surrounding soil. So in times of high heat and stress and drought, there's much more water accessible by the plant than there would be in a normal porous soil. In fact, it actually holds up to 10 times its own weight in water, which is it's the most prolific wetting agent known to mankind. In addition to that, it has a high organic carbon content that contains every organic nutrient, vitamin and mineral required to give and sustain the life and fertility of all soil. And all those elements are vital to produce optimum yield and nutrition in all plants and vegetation, which in turn also provides optimum nutrition to the immune and health systems of animals and us, humans. And why, most people ask, why does it need to be processed? It's natural, it comes from nature. And so it's because during the formation of the humus and the humic substances, they become strongly bound to the carbon skeleton in which they were created by the formation of a long-chain molecular structure. I don't want to get too scientific here, but as a consequence of that, the valuable contents of these materials become locked in the substrate and are only released slowly by nature over hundreds of years. So if you just take this stuff out of the ground and throw it in your garden, only 1% of it will do anything. The rest of it will yield itself over the next couple of hundred years, which you won't know about because you won't be here. So the key to unlocking those locked substances so that it becomes immediately available is in a process that we've developed with the apparatus that I told you before that we've designed. And when we run lignite through that process, the full complement of dormant humic substances is liberated and becomes immediately available. And that's the secret to the product.
Amazing. Wow. And for those who want to read more about that, then check out the website, key2group.com. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, and this will make a world of difference. Just give it a go. Free sample you can get on the website. They just email you through the website, or
Yeah, that'd be great. Yes, we will answer everybody that comes to us through there. And as you saw from the process when you're in our plant down in Victoria, it's an air process. It makes a noise like a jet airplane taking off, but all we use in that processing is air, currents, and sound waves. There's nothing else that is used. There's no catalyst or anything, any additives thrown in there. So that's why the product remains completely natural, because nothing's added to it whatsoever. All we're doing is making it change from holding on to its goodies to giving up its goodies straight away.
Fantastic. And the beauty is that once people have the proper nutrients in their soil, which will then be in the food, then people will actually eat a lot less and they'll be having more nutrient food. So it's going to be better all around for your health, because we actually don't need to eat a lot. But, I do find often myself too, I find even though I'm eating quite a bit, I'm still hungry because I'm just not getting the nutrients. So I can really feel it. Whereas if I have a really nutritious meal, it'll fill me up for quite a while. So this will actually be great on the world's food supplies too. We won't need as much food, right?
Well, your body's telling you that it's not nourished. That's what the hunger feeling is telling you. I mean, unless you said, full of saturated fats, but with most processed foods and fast foods and so on will not satisfy that urge. Your body is reaching out for what it really needs, and it's not being provided in the food that you're eating. Look at processing is really important, and how foods are grown and processed and things like that are more important than anyone can imagine. A great example of that is seeds. Everyone can agree that vitamins, minerals, and amino acids are necessary building blocks for a healthy body, but where do they come from? Actually, of the 44 essential nutrients, wheat grain contains all but 4 of them. So it doesn't contain vitamins A, B12, and C, or iodine, but it contains, the actual wheat seed itself contains all the rest. So how do we get those 40 nutrients from wheat or bread? Because plants create fruit when they reproduce. Fruits contain seeds, and when plants release these seeds, they fall, or animals eat and excrete them back into the ground, and the plant's life cycle continues. So grains are the seed-bearing fruits of grasses, and their life-giving nutrients are fully contained and perfectly stored, making them an incredibly nutritious food. Each kernel of grain has a germ at its core, surrounded by a storage packet of starch called the endosperm. It serves to nourish the young seed embryo when sprouted. And the entire kernel is protected by a layer of bran and sometimes an additional layer called the hull. As long as the bran is intact and the grain kept at a relatively cool, dry place, these seeds will store indefinitely with no nutrient loss, like almost all seeds do. And this is exactly what you hope for when you read your bread ingredients, what's going on in there, but that's not really what happens. So once a kernel of wheat's broken open, it's as it is in the milling process, the protection of the bran is gone and much of the nutrients are lost through their exposure to oxygen or oxidation. So unfortunately, it happened way back in the late 1800s, the invention of industrial milling brought the discovery of separating the core, like the bran and the germ, from surrounding the storage packet as a way to create a white flour with a longer shelf life. The downside of that was that you were then left with a flour that was stripped of its insoluble fiber, vitamins, and minerals, all of which are essential for proper digestion and nourishment. So, but as with many things, the convenience and mass production process strip bread of nutrients. The increased gluten intolerance many experience today is not because of the body's inability to process gluten, but because their body is no longer processing the whole food of wheat. The nutrients that help the body break down, the gluten, and they don't any longer accompany the gluten in the bread. This makes it difficult in the case of gluten intolerance, impossible for our bodies to break down the wheat, because the things that are normally with that wheat that help break down the gluten have been extracted in that processing technique. So not only are vitamins and minerals and amino acids important to consume, but also necessary for our body's digestion system to work effectively. When we consume whole foods that are in nature and meant to be consumed, it's called bioavailability, which is what makes food absorbable and accessible for our body to use as nutrients. Processing and what we call manipulating or manipulating our food in these ways is a huge contributor to why so many of us today are unhealthy. As we move away from the perfect forms of food that nature has provided for us and destroy them with greedy manufacturing practices in the name of making food last longer, we are destroying our health. So, the convenience over health efforts don't stop there. We spray pesticides and glyphosate on our crops to improve yield, disrupting and compromising our gut health even further in order to increase crop yields. And the soil that our crops are planted in are also then depleted of essential minerals, so we no longer get those as well. In the end, all these attempts to mutilate our food continue, but there's still hope because we have a choice. And we are lucky that we still do have access to whole foods, that we can formulate these real foods in a way that preserves their wholeness. This is why there's so much interest today in what's called foundational foods, like things like Cardio Miracle and Proline greens. We don't sell those, by the way, but they are products that have been invented or brought about and created in an answer to providing all those missing nutrients that are causing the health problems that we have today.
Amazing. Now we've got Bantams28 here on Twitch. Says, what about pickles? What are your thoughts on pickles?
Look, pickles aren't pickles until you pickle them. The thing is, so again, the pickle grows in the ground in the first place, or whatever you're going to pickle grows into the ground. Whether it be a cucumber or a zucchini or whatever else you're going to, whatever else you pickle. If the nutrient content in there is in the pickle and you don't have a high temperature, usually you can affect the vitamin content when you go above 40 degrees Celsius. But if you just normally pickle them at the usual temperature, then all the vitamins and minerals will be preserved in that pickle long term. So you have no problem with that, but it won't have any more vitamins or minerals than it had when it was first picked from the garden.
So Bantams are saying, but will it make me healthy? So I think you just answered that. Yes.
I think so. Again, nothing changes the content of what's in the food already when it's grown. Whatever's going to be in the food has to be in the soil in the first place. Anything that's not in the soil cannot possibly be in the fruit or vegetable, in the produce. It's not possible.
So things like sauerkraut, where they ferment it, which has been used for eons. They say some of that's good for gut health. However, that would be better if it was really good soil initially from where the cabbage came, right?
I imagine there's a lot of people who would disagree with that, who have had sauerkraut and similar, and it hasn't rested very well with them. but in general, it's the same applies. It's still a leafy green vegetable, and it's just it's only the way that it's prepared and or cooked that makes a difference. Again, the nutritional quality, particularly the vitamins, is subject to loss from heat. So if you cook something at a high heat, it's not going to have much mineral content. Vitamin content afterwards. It'll still have the same mineral content because minerals are basically metals, and you need a lot of heat to melt metal, as you know. So it'll have a mineral content if it had it in the first place. But again, the only mineral content it can get is out of the ground. And so if those minerals are not in the soil, or they've been depleted from the soil, then they won't be in the produce. It's not possible.
So the fermenting process, I guess, it's like kombucha, mushroom tea, and sauerkraut will have some different, I mean, I don't know the science around this, but it is meant to be very good for your gut health to have things like sauerkraut. Bantam says here, I'll put both on my Polish sausage. So that's great. Enjoy the pickle on your sausage. I mean, there is a lot of people that will say it's great. However, you could just take it next level again if you actually have great nutrition in your soil from where the cabbage comes from. And I saw a really great video on YouTube actually where they were talking about that, if everything goes to hell and we suddenly don't have much food left on the planet, it's like Hunger Games again back years ago, then there's 5 essential foods that are brilliant to have to keep you going for a long time. And one of those is potato. Then they mention pumpkin. They mention corn. They mention tomatoes. And the last one is cabbage, which a lot of people make the sausages out of, etc. Or the not sausage, the pickles for the sausages and the pickles, the sauerkraut, etc. So I guess if you think about it, those essential 5 foods, if you have great nutrition going into your soil and you have that in your garden or in the farms, then, that will keep you going for a long time down the track, even if we have food shortages, etc. happening, right? So what are your thoughts on those foods and any other foods that you would recommend that would be great to plant for those that are thinking of, getting some crops going?
Oh, look, I wouldn't recommend one over another. I mean, we have incredible number of immigrants in Australia, and I've travelled the world, as has Stefan, and the food variety is just immense. And you can find joy in most food. Well, I do anyway. And we've been blessed to have all the immigrants bring their traditions and foods here, so that we didn't end up with an English diet of egg and baked beans. And so I'm very thankful for that personally. But the truth is, it doesn't matter what you do to food apart from heat. After it comes out of the garden, it's not going to change anything. So if you want to pickle it and however you want to prepare it and eat it, that's fine. But the place to get nutrition into it is where it grows, and it can't have anything in it that isn't in the soil. That's the point that we continually try to make. We have overworked the soils, and that nutrition doesn't exist there anymore. And we need to do everything we can possibly do to foster putting nutrition back into the soil. And there are ways and means of doing that. We have a new technology and a new product, which I believe is just the start of things to come. And, if all of us are given sufficient time to make transitions away from artificial fertilizers, the same as we're transitioning away from coal and gas-fired power, and they want to go to transition to something, that's all well and good, but you need time to do that, and technology will answer those questions. So other people will come up with technologies that may not be the same as ours, but they will still be effective technologies and provide solutions to the problems that we have feeding greater and greater populations, even though there are some movements going on in the world today to reduce that population, and some of the people that are trying to do that are using foodstuffs to do it. Like, in the United States today, they're using mRNA injections into beef cattle and to pork in order to transfer that to human beings. And we have to be really, really careful, which way we go. Obviously there's a natural way to go and there's an unnatural way to go, and the unnatural ways are going to cause us more problems than we've ever seen. And the natural ways are going to correct all the problems that we have now. So to me, there isn't really a choice. However, the food cabal, most of the world's food supplies are controlled by very few companies. Less than 10 companies in the world are the major suppliers of the world food supplies. And although we're still fortunate in Australia, fortunate enough not to have moved completely into genetically modified foods, they are heading in that direction, and that to me is the worst thing that we can do. And I think it's a danger to our health. It's not a solution to our food security, nor is it a solution to our overall health. And people don't understand what that means. but they will have more of an understanding because recently most of the population was genetically modified by an injection to produce a spike protein, which your body doesn't normally produce. And I would suggest that that is not the most healthy thing to do to our bodies. And now they want to use those sorts of technologies in animals and pass it on to humans, and that will have a massive effect on our health, and even more so when we're not aware of it. But if you want me to talk a little bit about the problems we have as far as with transferring over to genetically modified foods, then I could possibly talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
But it's not a good subject. It's more of a negative type of subject. Anyway, in that respect, so it started all in the United States, where the farmers are incentivized by government to plant certain crops, and by doing that, they get to do what they love and what they know. But what they don't know is the truth behind the genetically modified seed oils and false commodities that they inject into our food supply and our bodies every couple of hours. Do you know what's in our food? I mean, I'd like to ask that question to everybody. I mean, the truth would shock most people. Our food has been hijacked and the nutritional value has been compromised. And the worst part is that you're paying for it. So we need to expose the industrial food complex for what it truly is. And one of the most shocking revelations in that regard is the use of canola oil in our food. Canola is derived from rapeseed. In fact, a lot of it, you go and buy rapeseed rather than canola seed. It's the same thing. But rapeseed was banned for human consumption in 1956 due to its high levels of urucic acid. In the 70s, labs developed strains of rapeseed with low levels of urucic acid and found ways to remove the bitterness. So that's made canola now one of the most commonly used ingredients in processed food, despite being known to cause cancer and to catalyze unhealthy brain function, heart disease, liver problems, hypertension, strokes, and stunted growth in children. What's even more alarming is most of these problems are not immediate, but caused by accumulation. Canola oil is used in almost every processed food we consume, and most restaurants use it to fry and cook their food, and the authorities allow it. But unfortunately, canola is just the tip of the iceberg. Genetically modified foods are widely consumed, and they're modified in a way that could never occur in nature. Like this is nothing that where there's been an improvement made. In fact, it's a retrograde step. So 90% of say American canola, soy, sugar, and wheat are genetically modified. And the top 5 most common ingredients in processed foods are all salts. The next 2, dextrose and corn syrup, are the most used in food and beverages consumed worldwide. Both are derived from corn that is genetically modified. So every single American and many other people alive eat genetically modified foods every day, and those products are exported throughout the world. I mean, even the sugar and all that stuff that's in your Coca-Cola and Pepsi and soft drinks that we consume here, they all come from corn syrup. It's not derived from actually sugar plants. And then the diet ones have chemicals in them to make, or chemical sugar. And it's even worse for you than real sugar. So toxicity is a primary concern when it comes to genetically modified foods. And the regulatory agencies responsible for ensuring the safety of food and drugs maintains that all GM foods on the market are safe for human consumption. However, many studies suggest otherwise. A UK study by Dr. Stanley Awen and Arpad Pudstai, I think that's his name, found that rats fed GM potatoes showed signs of gastrointestinal tract issues caused by trans genes found in GM potatoes. Multiple studies have also linked GM foods to allergies, antibiotic resistance, and immunosuppression. And on top of that, you've got pesticides and herbicides that are associated with GM foods. They're used to eliminate insects and weeds, producing faster and more cost-efficient crop yields. But Monsanto's Roundup, for instance, the most popular herbicide, contains carcinogens of oxidized petroleum, residues, arsenic, and glyphosate. While plants are immune to the herbicide, humans are not. And the active ingredient, glyphosate, is found in most of the foods we eat, as well as clothing, non-organic cotton products, and even drinking water. Glyphosate's been linked to multiple diseases, including cancer, kidney and intestine dysfunction, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So we've got all this going on at the moment, and and people are just unaware. We think it's really convenient to go to the supermarket and buy everything that we need, and it's true. And we have those same supermarkets advertising that we're the fresh food people, and so on. And as I've told you before, it's as fresh as you can get it, except from your farmer's market. But it's 6 weeks old when you get it, so it's not that fresh either. And that is a real problem. Why they don't send things directly to shops rather than back by their distribution centre. They could really give us a lot more healthful food if they did that, but it's not something that the supermarkets are set up to do at this stage. But we're making a ride for our own backs, and it's time that we started to understand, like food doesn't come from supermarkets. We need to understand that and realize that, like chickens don't grow in supermarkets, and nor do fruit and vegetables. They all are farmed somewhere, and they end up in the supermarket in a convenient packet for us. And so we need to give consideration to what's happening, and the people that are growing that food, more importantly, or if you're growing your own, you can have a huge impact on your own health and your own life by growing your own food. And I think in the future, that's going to happen more and more. And instead of us planting shrubs and flowers in the backyard, we'll probably all have our own veggie patch and be growing our own fruit and vegetables with products like ours that can guarantee that whatever we're eating is at absolutely optimum nutrition for our entire body. And also the flavors and the other things will be best. And getting out there and getting your hands dirty can't be a bad thing either.
No, it's very grounding doing gardening. So for those who don't mind that, I absolutely love it myself. Actually, I'm looking forward to getting the whole garden happening out the back. I've got quite a few things I'm growing already, but I'm looking to plant a lot more and become a lot more self-sufficient, as I know a lot of people are. And these things we talk about here, they are absolutely real. The mRNA vaccines have been known to cause side effects like coagulation disorders, acute cardiac injury, Bell's palsy, and encephalitis. And we've seen, certainly since the jab has been out, and a lot of people have been getting jabbed everywhere, that there've been a lot more cardiac arrests, and each to their own when it comes to that. You make the choice for yourself. However, really, I think if you can keep things as natural as possible, that's always the better way. Now, what about seedless grapes? Seedless grapes, some people say, are they genetically modified? Because grapes aren't natural without seeds, right? What do you think of seedless grapes?
I like them, particularly because you don't have to dig the seed out. But look, seedless grapes, along with everything else, are genetically modified, but not all of them. So it's very important you get a chance, you get a choice. I think it's a little slightly deceptive of supermarkets that you go to these days. They have these bags of grapes, all right? Now on that bag, it'll have made in Australia, and sometimes it'll have made in USA or made in somewhere. But the bag's identical, and if you don't read that label, you may be taking something home. Like if it's from America, it's definitely genetically modified, for instance, right? And it may taste very similar, but again, you don't notice it when you're happening. It's about accumulation. There's, our bodies can all stand a certain amount of toxicity, but when we get toxic buildup over a long time, I mean, people can experience this in a number of ways. So, for instance, they may eat something for much of their lives, and all of a sudden, when they eat it, one day they get hives or they have a reaction to it. it happens often with women who use makeup, for instance, and they can use the same makeup for a long time and don't realize there's the toxic nature of it. But after a while, they'll use it and they'll start breaking out on their faces because it's actually from that makeup. But they find it strange because they've always used that makeup. Why is it causing that problem now? And the answer is always the same. It's because your body has a great tolerance to toxicity. However, when it gets to a certain level, your body just says no, it rejects it, and it will react to that toxicity when it reaches a certain level. So all these things are building up in our bodies. But seedless grapes are just mainly they really were modified by cloning more than anything, not genetic modification. So, we all sorts of plants are cloned where you add one into another and you splice them together and things like that. So that's how we get yellow capsicum versus red and green. It all started out as green capsicum, and some of it had a slight shade in it. So they then use those seeds to get more of that, and the ones that produce more and more yellow, then they again bred them together. So crossbreeding is fine, and if you throw the grapes back in the ground, they'll grow again. So you'll see a grapevine appear eventually. So the seed just isn't visible, if you like. It's just been bred over and over again to the ones that have the least amount of seeds until they hardly have any. I think seedless grapes are much more successful than seedless watermelon. I'm not sure how you feel, but I haven't found a real seedless watermelon yet. So,
yes.
They tend to still have seeds, but again, far less seeds than they used to. But again, the seeds contain everything in them, and if they're treated right, you can have what you need. It's all natural, but again, people don't realize that we are importing foods. I mean, I do a lot of shopping myself, and for instance, I see Italian kiwi fruit. So kiwi fruit, as we all know in Australia, came originally from the Kiwis in New Zealand, and it's a magnificent fruit. And of course, most of the soil and things in New Zealand are really high quality. So eating any New Zealand produce that hasn't been processed is really good for you. I wouldn't say the same thing about Italian, but it just goes to show you, where you may be buying something. If you want to get fruit all year round and it's not growing in New Zealand or Australia at the time, they're importing it from other countries. And when it comes from other countries, it hasn't been dealt with the same way or grown the same way as it is in Australia, for instance, or in New Zealand. So we need to be aware of that.
Yes.
And again, I think the future for us all is really probably start living more as our grandparents did. And I don't mean that in a non-partying way, but as far as I think it might be time for us to take a step back, evaluate our daily consumption decisions, and start making changes that create an awareness that empowers us by putting art into the act of food growth and preparation. And by doing that, we can do something that's called food intelligence. We become more intelligent about food, and when you grow your own things and prepare them, there's a certain amount of satisfaction that you can't really derive from doing it any other way. Now, I fully understand a lot of people don't have the time to do that, or the inclination and or the hours and so on, and it's not always possible. But look, it doesn't take much to have just a small veggie patch, even a portable one in a large oblong pot, for instance. You can grow a bunch of things in that and just have a few of those things growing. Like little tomatoes, for instance, are really easy to grow, and you only need to put a stick in there for them to grow up the vine and to grow up the stick and just to support them. And you can regularly have beautiful, fresh tasting tomatoes all the time. And it's not really a difficult thing to do. And it's something, you can do right outside your front door or your back door.
So, absolutely. I'm actually growing spring onion on my windowsill. It's amazing how easily spring onion grows.
Well, it's amazing how everything grows. I mean, mostly, obviously, water is the most important ingredient for all of it. But you don't have to be a genius. A lot of people, say they haven't got a green thumb, but people tend to maybe overwater their plants sometimes, and they don't see the signs of that, and that can be just as bad as not having enough water, or even worse. And they tend to add Osmocote and other things which are very, very strong, slow-release fertilizers, and they really have a bad effect on the plant's roots. So what they're doing is over-fertilizing, because plants don't need a lot of fertilizer. That's it. It's easy to over-fertilize them completely. Like with our product, for instance, in a kilo of soil, the maximum of our product you put is 20-25 grams. Right, so it's not a lot, and that will nourish the soil, bring in the microbial life, and give that plant everything it needs, and it'll grow strong and healthy, and whatever fruit it bears will be the tastiest fruit you've ever tasted in your life.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So, the food industry has been manipulating the food we eat for decades, and it's time we take back control of our health and nutrition. And understanding the issues is the first step towards making informed decisions about the food we eat. And we need to take action in our own lives, and we can create a healthier future for ourselves and our families and our planet. And it's the only way to do it is to get back and start DIY and or even community. I noticed when we met you down in Victoria, in Melbourne. The nearby park had a common garden, and people were growing all sorts of things in that common garden because it's surrounded by home units and high rises, and yet the people were finding ways there to grow food, and have a garden in the middle of all that, which is fantastic. And it's a community garden, so everyone can go there and tend to it and take some of the food or grow some of the food, plant some of the food. And so that's happening even now, and the more we can do that, the better. But we certainly need better quality fertilizers than we presently have access to, and that's where our product comes in as the start of a change in that overall ecosystem, to have far more efficient and natural fertilizing techniques than we do presently.
Yes, I love it. And we've got Fred here. Good to see you, Fred. Where can we access the Key2 products? I've been popping it up there, key2group.com. Check it out. There's a whole lot of science online, lots of information on there. You can get a free sample too if you reach out through Key2 Group and give it a go on your garden. I'm sure you'll be absolutely blown away by this product. I think it will be an absolute life changer for anyone who has any farms, and eventually, hopefully, it'll be brought into the home gardens as well. But right now, it's really available for farmers. And we'll see what happens down the track as far as, as a lot more people are doing these community gardens, a lot more people are wanting to maximize the small space that they have in their own yards to actually grow a lot of produce, like I will be doing myself. I think, you've got the land, then if you have great soil and you tend to your gardens, obviously you're going to really reap the rewards again and again and again. And there's nothing quite like food straight from the garden. You just cannot beat it, and it makes the world of difference. So I think it's absolutely brilliant what you've created with Key2 Group. And I think for anyone in Melbourne, can they actually see the factory? Do you take people down there for those interested?
Oh, yeah, look, a lot of people that are involved with the business, or investors and customers, want to come and see it. A lot of customers come and pick up bags from the factory either. Just as well, just on the subject of the product, we are not yet producing for home gardeners in small quantities. Our main thrust has been to get it out in commercial farms and so on. But we are currently working with a group that has a product in Bunnings, and we will be we'll notify you and keep people informed when our product's going into this product that's at Bunnings, and it'll be available, and it'll have on the label that it contains Key2 Ag, so that you'll know that you're buying the right thing. So we hope to have the domestic market, if you like, the home gardener market covered in the not too distant future. So we are working on that, and we'll advise people as soon as that happens.
Wonderful. I think that'll be amazing. There'll be people holding on for that for sure. And for anyone, watching that has a farm or, has a big block of land that they're doing amazing work with, then definitely, connect them with Key2 Group and give it a go. I think you will be absolutely blown away by this product. And just check it out on the website, key2group.com, because we know that we're not getting the right nutrients in our food, and even in seafood now we've got microtoxicity from all the plastics in the ocean, and and that's something else that you're talking about, Mark, that over time our bodies can handle a lot of toxicity. However, eventually something's going to give, right? And this is where we've seen people just dropping off from cardiac arrest and all sorts of issues that have suddenly been coming on that maybe have been built up over the years. So the more we can alleviate this by planning ahead and actually empowering ourselves with these amazing products and this knowledge, the more that you will have a healthier future for yourself and your family moving forward, and for others.
That's the whole idea, because look, healthy living is so much better. There's nothing worse than a chronic illness. But even it's even to the extent. Look, I'd go further. There are a lot more reasons that our children have more chronic illnesses. Personally, I've seen the results of a number of clinical tests with regards to childhood vaccines that tend to encourage asthma and other chronic illnesses. So they are contributing. So all these things that that contain aluminium and things like that we're being told to inject into ourselves and our children are not helpful whatsoever, because our bodies are not designed to be able to ingest or digest or even process those sorts of things, and they always create problems. So the more natural we can go, and we have, the real truth is that people should understand is we have the most magnificent immune system in the universe. It's been developed over thousands of years or longer, and all it needs to do is to be nourished, and you don't need any other help. You don't need drugs. You don't need pharmaceuticals or any other help. You have the best system to conquer anything on the planet right there, and all you need to do is to nourish it properly, and it'll do everything you want it to do.
I love it. And I must say now I don't eat the white garlic anymore. It's amazing, just coming on a sidetrack to garlic. The purple garlic is so much better, the Aussie grown garlic, as opposed to the stuff in China. It's oh my gosh, it's unbelievable, the things that we have on the supermarket shelf that people think looks like food, but I'm sure it has absolutely no nutritional value compared to the pink garlic, for example. So and of course, great soil will lead to great produce, and that's what we're talking about here today. This is how to have the healthiest produce on the planet. Make sure you've got great soil, and if you want great soil, then you want to check out key2group.com. Stefan, is there anything else you'd like to add? We're going to wrap up shortly. I haven't heard too much from you, so is there anything else you want to add?
No, Mark's been covering most of it, but it's pretty straightforward. You're not getting what you need from food currently, so something has to change and give. And if you don't, you're going to live through the same thing over and over again. That's issues, malnutrition, allergies, you name it. So something has to change.
Yes, something has to change, and good on you. Congratulations for this amazing product you've created. We can get the word out on this, the better. So for those watching this too, please do spread the word. Mark, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thanks, Aldwyn. I think that it's fabulous. We didn't really invent the product. Nature did that part. They did the hard part. We just found the key to unlocking it, which we're very fortunate and blessed. And other people can enjoy that now. The hard work's been done, and look forward to the outcomes from that. And much appreciate your time and effort, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent. The key to unlocking the nutrients. That is absolutely the key to what we're talking about here. And so check it out, key2group.com. Well done once again, and onwards and upwards. The more we get this product out, the more people use it, the more people see the benefits. It will just keep growing from there. So it is a brand new product. It's only been out just the last few years of research, right? It's just very new on the market, and something very, very exciting, I think, for those who want to have the healthiest produce on the planet. This is your key. For those who want to connect with me also, you can do that at a linktree/Aldrin. So that's linktr.ee/Aldrin. Reach out if you have something amazing you want to promote or want to get a service product message out there, then stay connected there at the Linktree. And check out Key2 Group. Have a look at some of the videos as well on there. You'll be quite amazed by this product. And I know we have some people that will be watching this from the Melbourne area as well that might want to come check out your factory as well, and maybe pick up some of the product there to have a free trial. So reach out to Key2 Group there too if you'd like to do that in the Melbourne area. And you do ship worldwide, is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So wherever you are in the world, you can have a go, try this product out, and I'm sure you won't look back. Any final words from either of you before we wrap up?
No, thanks again, Aldwin. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Share the love. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this episode. What have you learned today? And please subscribe and share this with anyone you know that might be interested as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. And as Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. We'll see you again next time here on Media Queen TV. Bye for now.